Chapter 4. Lanklor, Knight Commander of the Knights of Avlor, stood behind Mikael outside the door of a murderer's farmhouse. Mikael had knocked upon the door some time ago, and they waited underneath the misshapen overhang that did nothing to prevent the torrent of rain from reaching them. A single lantern flickered next to the door, fighting to remain alight as the water seeped into a small crack along its side. The lantern revealed a wide-eyed militiaman as the door opened. "She's just through here, Guardsman Mikael." "Thank you," Royal Guardsman Mikael said as he motioned his men to remain outdoors. "I'll take it from here." He opened the door and entered the small farmhouse with Lanklor close behind. Lanklor wrinkled his nose at the smell of blood. He was glad for his helmet. It wasn't professional for a knight to show any type of weakness. A single candle in the middle of a sturdy table provided the only light. Its flickering glow touched the woman sitting in a low chair, with her hands clutched in her lap. She stared out the window into the black night, heedless of the world around her. Her lips moved in a quiet conversation with herself. "Nalia, my name is Mikael. Can you tell me what happened?" Mikael's voice erupted from the shadows. She glanced at the guardsman, then turned back to the darkened window. She replied in a low voice, filled with anguish. "He wasn't himself. I don't know what was wrong with him. Why did this happen? If only Please, tell me when you noticed something was wrong." Mikael's patient voice made Lanklor envious. They shouldn't have to wring a story out of someone. He relished having his knights report to him without hesitation. No time wasted. Lanklor tried to blend into the shadows, observing like Commander Warren had asked. He crossed his arms and fought the urge to flap the water from his wings. His size and personality made it difficult to go unnoticed. After leaving a mound of paperwork and plans for the trip to Rakalo unfinished, he was eager to complete this favor to the Royal Guard. "Oh, yes, I guess that would be last week. Harold went into town to sell vegetables, as he does every week. Only this time he didn't come back for days. I went to look for him and found him just standing in a field. No vegetables, his clothes soiled, and this blank look on his face. He didn't seem to recognize me at first, and then he seemed okay and let me lead him home." Nalia shook her head, and tears streamed from her eyes. "I thought he had just caught a chill when he sat in his chair unmoving for a couple of days. Then all of a sudden, he just jumped out of it and grabbed me. His eyes were the worst. Black as death. I struggled to get away and tripped him somehow. He fell hard and his head slammed the table. He didn't move after that. Harold was always a gentle soul. I don't know what happened to him." She started wailing, and Mikael comforted her until the weeping passed. Lanklor remained silent, trying to total the number of incidents in the past month. With this one, and the one from last week, they had a total of 10 changed men. That was double the number from last month. Warren was right to ask him to come along. The Knighthood would have to get involved with the investigation. Mikael and Lanklor left the farmhouse a few hours before dawn, heading back to the castle at the head of Mikael's squad. Lanklor guided his horse around a deep puddle, ignoring his discomfort from the rain. He tried to piece together why people found in the middle of a field suddenly started killing with no warning. These past few cycles held one damn thing after another. More frequent daemon attacks, husbands killing their families, and now Earthlings, of all things. They hadn't seen Earthlings on Avlor for a while, and now they were popping up in the middle of the barrens? For the goddess's sake, the nights were spread thin enough as it was. Mikael's men remained quiet as they dismounted and headed to the Royal Guard barracks. It had been a long day of hard riding, dead bodies, and grieving people. Lanklor knew Mikael would have to report on all of it this afternoon, so now was the only time to grab a few hours of sleep to recover his strength. Mikael and Lanklor guided their horses to the other side of the courtyard and the officers' quarters. A groom took their reins and they dismounted. Without a word, a boy guided Mikael's exhausted mount to a clean stall, while another stroked Lanklor's mount's drooping head. Mikael headed toward his house on soft feet. but she heard his approach anyway. The door flew open, and a small girl with flowing brown hair ran down the steps and threw herself into his arms. "Mikael, you're finally home!" "Finally? I was only gone the usual amount of time. What kind of trouble have you managed to cause while I was away?" Mikael said as he tossed her into the air, giggles filling the quiet dawn. "I don't cause any trouble," she said after the giggling subsided. "Nana showed me how to bake bread last night. Did you know there were all different kinds of bread? There's wheat, white, sourdough, oat, grain." Mikael smiled. Landclor forgot his exhaustion for the moment as her excitement filled him. All of the death, all of the cruelty he saw every day, all was pushed to the back of his mind as he watched Mikael enjoy the time with his adopted daughter. Mikael glanced his way and gave him a curt nod. "I'll provide any help I can, but we're short on nights as it is." Landclor walked over and took the reins from the groom. "Keep me informed on any new developments. I'll keep in touch. Be safe, Guardsman Mikael." "Be safe, Sir Landclor." Landclor envied Mikael's distraction from work, but distractions were something Landclor couldn't afford, and his wings drooped, not just from the added weight of the rain, as he led his horse from the courtyard toward the castle. The afternoon mealtime had passed, and Landclor found himself leaning against the wall behind Guardsman Mikael in Royal Guard Commander Warren's workroom. He knew Mikael took pride in his job, but he bordered on breaking regulations, with his black hair falling an inch below the back of his helmet. "Commander Warren, I am here to report on last night's activities." "Yes, Mikael. Please take a seat. I have to go over things with Sir Landclor, so please, try to make it quick if possible." "Yes, sir. We investigated a murder last night, which looks to be another incident of a changed man. He had been missing for a couple of days when his wife found him in a field. He tried to kill her last night, but somehow fell and struck his head. The blow snapped his neck. That makes 10 this month alone." Warren rose from his chair. "I fear this is becoming an epidemic. That's why I've asked Sir Landclor to meet with me to discuss it." "Is there something he can do about it?" Mikael clenched his hands behind his back, out of sight of his commanding officer. Landclor sensed his frustration and remained silent. "I'm afraid he'll have to do something." Warren nodded to Landclor. "The knights are more capable of handling situations that involve dark magic. You know as well as I do that most of the guardsmen aren't adept at magic." The guard commander shuffled through some papers, signaling the end to that line of discussion. "I know, sir, but can't we try to learn more?" "Enough, Mikael. We've already had this conversation 3 times. You might be a skilled magic user, but the rest of the Royal Guard is not." Guard Commander Warren sighed, then continued in a level voice. "The Guard is here to protect the people from themselves. We'll handle the thieves, rapists, and murderers, and the Knighthood will have to handle any of the evil magic behind it. That's just how it is, and how it will always be." "Yes, sir." Mikael appeared to have a hard time reining in his frustration. Landclor had heard him mention how tradition had a tendency of getting in the way of investigations. Mikael and some other members of the Royal Guard were capable of investigating a magic-related crime. However, with something of this magnitude, the Knighthood should deal with it. Mikael sighed in resignation and finished his report, relaxing his hands and assuming the detached posture of a royal guardsman. Landclor's mind kept wandering back to the words of the widow. "Harold was always a gentle soul." Landclor knew people could change, just not overnight.